Hello guys, welcome back to Car Obsession and welcome to another episode of Living with a Mazda MX-5. Now in this video we are going to do a bit of time travelling because hopefully by now you would have seen the video where I fitted the new Jass Performance wheel spacers I fitted to my Mark 1. Well, in this video we are kind of in the past because, as you will see, the car has not got any spacers on it whatsoever. Now this video is all about my first impressions of how the wheel spacers are on the car and how the car has changed. And in order to do that, I need to give you some flavour of what the car is like to drive right now. And then I will cut in some footage where the wheel spacers have been fitted. And of course, I will give you my thoughts on what differences I have experienced. Now, some people have said that wheel spacers can make the steering different. It can make it a little bit more vague. It needs a bit more effort. Obviously, a lot of people say it improves the handling. So it'd be interesting to kind of get my own take on what changes I really noticed from having them fitted. Now, in case you are wondering, the wheel spacers are 25 millimeters, so it's 25 millimeter per corner. So that's 50 millimeters in total of the track being increased. So yes, let me give you a quick look in this video, just give you a bit of an idea of the difference in case you haven't seen the video where I fitted them. But if you want to watch that video, that is available for you in the right hand corner of your screen. But as it stands, Monique, my MX-5, she is called Monique in case you don't know, she is not wearing any spacers at all, and the wheels do look a little bit too sunken in, and that's really the main reason why I wanted to get spacers. The front wheels aren't too bad, but I'd say particularly the rear wheels, particularly if we come kind of this angle, they are buried a little bit in the arches. Some of you eagle-eyed viewers and my regular viewers will have noticed that I now have the roll bar fitted, which is as solid as anything. Literally, when I shake it, the whole car is shaking, and so is my camera, so I'll stop doing that. And so a massive, big thank you to Shepherd Motors in Essex for fitting that. As you can see, the job isn't quite done, but that's because they had a lot of jobs to do on this car in a relatively short amount of time. So the alternator has been fixed, the belt has been replaced, I've had a service done on the car, I've had a few, what else have I had done on the car? I've had a few bits and bobs done on the car. So yeah, they have done a fair amount of work in a short amount of time. All the cam belt and the water pump have been changed as well. Anyway, I'm waffling. You probably came here to listen to me talk about my wheel spacers, not really the rest of the car. But I just want to give you a quick update on the car. Doesn't she sound good? Now, for the sake of, I wouldn't say fairness, but just to kind of brief you guys, if you are new to my channel, firstly, hello, thank you so much for joining me, and welcome to my channel. But the wheel spacers aren't the only modification this car has. So, I've also got the Cobalt Exhaust, which sounds pretty tip-top. It sounds fantastic. Hopefully you can hear some of it. Oh my God! The McLaren 720S just went by. What a legend. I really hope I got that on camera. Yes, I've got the Cobalt Exhaust. I've got gas gold coilovers. And what else have I got? I've got the Momo steering wheel, airbag delete. I've got EBC green stuff pads, and I've also got EBC brakes, brake discs as well. And a few other bits and bobs. So this car, I wouldn't say is heavily modified, but has been tastefully modified, I'd say. Now, some of you may question the gold wheels, but I do like them. Now, anyway, onto the driving impression. So yes, this MX-5 is not standard. I do want to make that clear. But I would say it's been improved. Now, I've got gas gold coilovers, and the ride is good. I would say I've got the firmness set to, I'd say about just below half. Maybe more like just half actually. And the ride height, what ride height am I running? In all honesty, I've completely forgotten, so I'll have to drop in a subtitle. As I've mentioned, I've got the Cobalt Exhaust, but that doesn't really add that much in regard to the actual driving. It just gives you a better noise, although noise is of course subjective. So as I said earlier, one of the key things people will say in regard to differences for spacers will be the handling differences, but it can make the steering quite vague and it can give you more effort for steering. Now at the moment the steering is fine, of course it's fine. The turning is crisp, it's direct, and even though I do have power steering, it's still got quite a nice weight to it. It still feels quite natural and organic. At no point would I say this feels overly assisted. So yes, I may have power steering, but I don't have a problem with it. What I do have a problem with though is the traffic in front of me. Now going through this corner about 30 miles per hour, see how much lock I put on. So it's not quite a quarter, is it? I'd say an eighth of a turn, give or take. I know that's not exactly the most exact science, but it'd be interesting to see how or if the steering input I need changes once the spacers are on. Now I do just want to quickly comment, I do definitely feel a change with the roll bar being fitted. The car feels more rigid, it feels more solid, I'd say. Now I know some of you will point out that because of my height, my head is probably overhanging the roll bar, therefore if I were to roll over, this roll bar is pretty pointless because my head would still take the large amount of impact. Don't worry guys, I am onto that. I am looking into getting different seats, or what I could do is simply take some foam out of this seat, therefore I sit lower down in the car, which in all honesty I would quite welcome. Because of my height, I'm 6'2", it does mean that my legs are quite close to the steering wheel, which is why the previous owner removed the original steering wheel, which I still have at home, and put in this smaller Momo steering wheel, because he found that he was getting his right leg trapped between the steering wheel and the door. Now if you are hearing quite a few rattles, that is one of the downsides of having a lot of the interior trim out of the car. The back of the car is quite bare, so you do notice more rattles, and when the roof is up it does get pretty goddamn noisy in here. So with the simple click of my fingers and some rather nifty editing, you will find me tomorrow with the wheel spacers on. So, are you ready guys? 1, 2, 3. Look at that. Not only have I changed days, I've changed my clothes and sadly the weather. So yes, no roof down today because it is rather wet in the UK, but it is a typical British summer. One day it's sunny, the next it's crap. But you don't care about the weather, do you? You want to know how this car has been like since I fitted the spacers. Well, today won't be the fairest comparison because the road is now wet. So I do need to be a little bit careful because the tyres I have on the rear axle, the Pirelli P6000s, they're not very good in the wet. And before you say, well, replace them, I am. So tomorrow I'm getting brand new tyres for both axles. I'm getting the Michelin Pilot Sport 3 tyres. So hopefully I'll have a bit more grip when it's damp. But yes, thankfully this morning it was dry before I was filming. And one of the first takeaways I'd say is you do need more steering lock, and that's fine. I was expecting that. I've done as much research as I possibly could on wheel spacers, and I knew that there was a good chance I would require more steering effort, particularly when you consider I have changed the width of the track on this car to, I've changed it by, I've widened it by 50 millimeters. Therefore, I've got, the track has been increased by 2 inches, which is a fair amount. The extra steering effort doesn't concern me too much, but what does concern me is the steering feedback. The steering now, it feels a bit numb, and I must admit, I do feel a little bit disconnected from the front end. The steering isn't quite as crisp, and it's not as chatty as it used to be, which I do find disappointing. Now, I am taking these roads quite tentatively, because already on this road, the back end has wanted to step out. Once whilst I was going around a corner, and the other whilst I was kind of going in a straight line. So I don't know whether it's specifically the wheel spacers or the fact that I do have crap tyres on the rear axle, but the car doesn't really feel stable in the wet. Now, I've had these tyres on the car for quite some time, so I have gotten used to how the car changes when it is wet. And to be honest, it's never felt quite this unstable, particularly at slower speed. So both times back there, before I was filming, the back wanted to run away from me. I was doing about 35, so not really silly speeds, I'm sure you'll agree. So it's 60 down here, and I'm doing about 40, because to be honest, I daren't go any faster. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not specifically blaming that on the spacers. I'm just giving you my my first kind of impressions. However, I did drive the car this morning when it was dry, and the car felt perfectly stable. So I think the issue is definitely the tyres, but I think the spacers have exacerbated it a little bit. Now, I'm not going to get all technical with you, because I'm far from a master engineer or even an amateur engineer. So even through there, 30 miles per hour, the car didn't feel planted. But yes, I'm not. I'm far from anywhere. I'm not anywhere near the levels of engineering explained. I do check out his channel; it is brilliant. But when you put wheel spacers on, you do change the scrub radius. Now, I'm not an expert, but I think I'm now running a more positive scrub radius, which can make the car a little bit unstable. And I must admit, I can't quite push the car as much as I normally would, because to be honest, I haven't got the confidence. But I want to stress once more, that is down to the tyres, but I do think the spacers are playing a factor here, so to speak. The ride, I can't really notice any real differences in regard to the ride. It does feel a little bit more busy, but I think that's more my imagination, if I'm going to be honest. But yes, the biggest changes for me are the steering, and I'm afraid they aren't for the better. Now, one of the advantages of spacers is that it does improve handling, and I'm sure they do. I don't question that. However, this is my personal opinion. I personally think that to really notice any real differences, you would need to take this car onto track. And despite the modifications I've made to this car, I don't plan to track this car at any point. I keep saying this car. I should be calling her Monique. So for those of you who aren't regular viewers, this car is called Monique. The name was chosen by myself and my wife, so yes. Monique has become rather precious to me. Therefore, despite the coilovers and the roll bar and whatnot, I won't be doing any track days in her. So, there is a good chance I don't get too excited, I might buy a third car to use purely for track use. What that car will be, I don't know. To be honest, this is more of an idea I'm toying about with. So don't get your hopes up. I'm going to be stuck here until the end of the time. No, I'm good. So yes, the wheel spacers, they have definitely made a positive improvement on the looks of this car, but I don't think they are for me, if I'm going to be honest. Now, some of you may say, well, Aaron, you've gone for big spacers, you've gone straight in for 25mm, why not try a smaller spacer? And yeah, I could see where you're coming from, guys. However, the whole point of getting 25mm was that the alloys would be flush with the bodywork. Now, if I were to go for 5mm spacers or 10mm spacers, it wouldn't really give me the desired look that I would be looking for. So for me, as much as I hate to say it, I think I will be taking these spacers off. Now, I've got nothing against the product itself. The product is well made. The customer service was very good. Vlad at Jass Performance, he has been brilliant. He has answered the multitude of questions that I fired to him, because I did have a lot of questions. I was quite tentative about buying wheel spacers and apprehensive. So he did help to put my mind at rest, because there is a lot of negative comments about wheel spacers, as I'm sure you'll agree if you've ever looked into this type of modification. So I was a little bit, afraid of kind of diving straight in. So the product is good. The company I bought them from, so from my experience, were very good. The customer service was good. I think the price is fair for what they are. So overall, my products on the my thoughts on the product itself are positive. I want to make that very clear. I don't have any negative feelings to the product itself. You have to bear with me, I've got a bit of a painful tongue. But I haven't fallen in love with wheel spacers. Now, some of you may say, well, Aaron, you've had them on for literally a day and a half, give it more time. And I fully appreciate that, but at the same time, already, I'm not smitten with how the car drives. And some may say, well, get used to it, but I don't really want to, because the car doesn't feel the same. When I turn in, the car feels, dare I say, a little bit lazy. It doesn't have the same kind of housefly dartiness to it. Don't get me wrong, it doesn't feel like a big heffalump, but at the same time, in my eyes, but in my hands, I should say, and my feet, it doesn't feel like how an MX-5 should feel, if that makes sense. So yes, when I get home, I will be taking the spacers off, because tomorrow, as I've mentioned, or may have mentioned, I am getting new tyres, and also I'm getting a 4-wheel alignment, and it seems silly to have the wheels aligned with the spacers in place when I'm going to be taking them off. So I may as well take the spacers off before I have the wheel alignment, and then I can potentially put them on eBay or something, or sell them on, because let's face it, they are essentially brand new. So yes, that is my thoughts. I'm not against wheel spacers, and I would still recommend them to you, but they aren't for me. So it is a pity, but I knew there would be a chance that I wouldn't like wheel spacers, but I thought, well, let me dive in, give it a go, and then see for myself. But yes, to sum up, wheel spacers, I'm not against them, but they aren't for me. They aren't my cup of tea. Speaking of which, I'm now going to go home and have a cup of tea. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you have enjoyed it. If so, be sure to like, subscribe, and to ring my bell so you get notified every time I make a video. But until the next time, guys, be sure to keep up the car obsession.